We are live. Welcome to Thursday night. It is the Gabbing and Gonks with Josh and Ben. And unfortunately, for 2 weeks in a row, our dear Jimmy is out. This week, he has been caught in an internet outage. And so we are down to just the original two. Jimmy, we miss you. I hope your internet gets fixed. We hope you're able to join us in this wonderful talk. But we will make do. Welcome back, Blue Pig. I know you were off doing some, I think, driving classes. I hope those went well. And to everyone else as you're streaming in, happy Thursday. Hope everyone's having a great week. Ben, how are you doing on this lovely Thursday?
I'm chilling. I went for a jog. I did not think about Star Wars for like about half a day, which is a great feeling. Sometimes we need to step back and say, you know what? I enjoy other things in life. Let me return to my Star Wars a little bit later. It honestly puts you in a good frame of mind where you take a recess, you come back to the stuff that you enjoy, and now there is a little bit, you self-generate a bit of hunger that was not there before. So if you feel like you're oversaturated sometimes, I recommend you guys do it. It helps.
Yeah, makes total sense. We talked about it before. I know, like, sometimes, you know, especially now that I'm a air quotes content creator, where it's like you want to be watching or reading it all so you can make videos and talk to your friends and fans about it. In the community, you can be really like aggressive to try to, you know, consume it all. But that can kind of become a chore. And the next thing you know, you're not really interested in reading the books. The rule of two, that's what we should call it when it's just me and you, Ben. We should change the whole branding. We should do it all. Speaking of the branding this week, I love this image as the background. Regardless of if you like the show or not, we're going to talk about the finale. This was released today officially on the Kenobi Twitter, and this is like an official still. It looks really good. The background in this, it might not look great here, but if you go find the actual image, I can link it down below later. It's really pretty. But this is going to be a spoiler-filled conversation, guys. So we're going to give it a couple minutes before we roll in just to let people know and kind of get in the chat. We're going to talk a lot about the finale for the first half of the stream. It's probably going to be mainly finale focused. And then we're going to kind of interweave that conversation and looking forward. You know, Andor, Bad Batch, Tales of the Jedi, more High Republic novels. We're going to look at like what are the next big upcoming projects? What are we excited for? How are things paced throughout this year? Because this is Kenobi's really our second project of the year, and maybe the biggest, you know, that we've had on Disney Plus. But it's our second. We had Book of Boba Fett that hit earlier this year. I know it technically started at the end of 2021, but we had it this year. And we have two, to me, three other very large Disney Plus projects coming. So it's going to be a very full year. And, you know, it's going to be great. We're going to talk about that a little bit after Kenobi as well. But all that being said, if you guys don't know, this is going to be spoiler filled. And if you guys have not watched the episode yet, I don't know why you're on YouTube. It's a dangerous place.
Yeah, definitely go see it, guys. Don't blame the internet. Don't blame YouTube, Twitter. Just shut all of that off. Go watch your episode. You can survive without your social media for a day. I mean, especially if Kenobi means so much to you, right? If you waited for so long, just shut it off, man.
What I've had to do on release day is I have to delete Twitter and YouTube from my phone until I can get home and watch it. Now I stayed up late for the finale just because I was concerned about getting it spoiled, and it kind of worked in my schedule where I can maybe stay up a little bit late one night.
You didn't catch any spoilers?
Oh no, I did not. I watched it right when it dropped, and I will tell you guys, yeah, I had no sleep that day, but it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. It was fun. I was very happy to stay up, and we'll talk about that a lot in the spoiler. I mean, for those who don't know, we put our reviews out already, so you can go kind of get the full, you know, standalone opinions. I really had a very good time, and one thing that I'm not going to get into specifics, but I will just get into a general thought here that I was talking to Jimmy about earlier in the week as well, offline, and that is, you know, to me, you know, finales can be very important. It's the last taste you get as an audience member. And I kind of believe one of the reasons you know, you could look at the easy ones, Game of Thrones, right? You end the show poorly. No one remembers or talks about how the first 5 seasons were really, really good. I mean, really well done TV. And that you drop off, you let last taste. So to me, you know, Ben, Jimmy, and myself all stayed up together and we watched the Book of Boba Fett finale. And that Book of Boba Fett finale was fine. It was a fine episode, but I almost feel like, you know, we were all like, all right, it's the final episode. And then it was just kind of fine. And then your lasting impression of the show is like, oh, it's just kind of fine. You know, that was kind of my impression of the show was like, But I stayed up for this one, and I thought this one was much more emotionally rewarding. And that definitely impacts your viewing experience. You stayed up late, you're excited. Then the moments hit you a little, hit a little bit better because you're up and you're excited. It's like going to opening night to see a Star Wars movie and the theater's packed. You can kind of get in with the energy a little bit. It happens totally. So, that just is that definitely probably impacts my viewing. But I was very happy I did. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a really good time. Now, Ben, you were able to resist social media. You just get up at a normal hour and you watch the episode. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I was in no rush to watch it.
See, and that just shows you right there how different Ben and I are as fans. I love Star Wars so much I can't sleep. Ben just naps away. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you know what it is? Even I think the more interested I am in the content, the more I want the rest, because I realized chasing this whole I got to get my review out there so my audience watches it thing, it's not for me. I'd rather watch it at my pace, enjoy it first, and then when I do my review, I'm genuine, but I'm also in it. You know what I mean?
I get it for sure. There's a balancing act where like you do want to take your time with your review, but you do also want to get it out. For me at least, I like to get it out when I'm kind of still in that kind of right post episode kind of moment, like
buzz, right?
Right, exactly. Because you wait a week or two. To me, it's very easy. Your opinion can change completely, right? I mean, I don't know. There's something about like a genuine first reaction that I like to share with everyone. I think that's kind of the more fun way to do it. But regardless, I think we have waited about 7 minutes. I have warned folks, there'll be spoilers in the title. Please don't be on here if you do not want Kenobi spoiled for you. I know, oh my gosh, if I'm just scrolling through TikTok, you'll see like the entire last episode. If you're just looking at thumbnails on YouTube, you'll see it all. So, that's the space you live in. But let's get rolling here. Again, for those joined late, Jimmy is out with internet issues. Maybe he'll join us later. But we're going to talk about the Kenobi finale. That's where we're going to start. And for people who've watched our channels or probably seen our social media, you probably already know where we fell on this episode. And if you don't, I will go ahead and give you guys kind of a quick summary to lead us off here before we dive into the individual kind of components of the episode. I really liked this episode. I think it was a really, to me, very satisfying wrap up. And I'll get into the specifics of why, but I think they had a real opportunity to go way off course with this ending episode. And I actually thought they did some really solid things that gave me, I think, some good closure. And if I never see these two actors play this role again, I think the lasting impression of these two actors who mean a lot to me in my Star Wars life, really, it left me with kind of a sweet feeling, a smile on my face. The last conversation I thought between Anakin and Obi-Wan, I really liked that moment. And we'll talk more details of why it worked so well for me. And even Obi-Wan's kind of ending position where he had found some closure and he had found some kind of reinvigorated purpose. And of course, the very last moment where he gets to see Qui-Gon again. I feel like that is a great last memory of those actors for me. That's the last time I ever see him in Star Wars. And that to me was almost the most important thing was, don't go so weird or off that my last memory is like, golly, the last scene with Obi-Wan, he was, dancing in Jabba's palace with his shirt off. There was nothing wild or wonky. And so to me, that made me really happy and really satisfied. And beyond that, I definitely said this in my review, and I hate that I have to preface this every time, but I just want to be clear. I've never once said or will never say that Kenobi was a perfect show. Absolutely not. And I will never say it about the prequel movies that came before them. I've done multiple hour-long podcasts with Ben where I spend time kind of pointing out a lot of the flaws of the sequels. That being said, I really liked this show. I had a really good time with it, and I really loved the show, just like I love the prequels before it. I understand that for some people, those issues with execution will lower their enjoyment. But just like a McDonald's cheeseburger, right? I never said it was the best cheeseburger, but man, sometimes a burger and fries hits good. I'm not saying Kenobi's McDonald's. My point is we can like things even if they're not perfect or the best executed version of themselves. So I really loved Kenobi. Not saying it's perfect because I know people have problems with it, but to me, I think it was a really, really big success. And I'll leave it there. We'll get into more details later. Ben, the wise Jedi Master here in the room.
So for me, I'm a little bit opposite from you, with all my entertainment, whether it's, books or video games or show, it's always about the journey for me. If I stick with the characters, I just finished a fantasy novel where the ending was a little bit deflating. It didn't ruin my experience. With Kenobi, honestly, as we've communicated with one another, I told you guys that I'm not very excited for it. I'm going to keep my reservations pretty low and just see this show, take it for what it is, without coming in with my set of expectations. So my reaction to this show deflated pretty quickly without like second, maybe third episode.
Well,
and it didn't quite improve.
For folks who don't know, I might have talked about this before. Ben and I watched the first episode together, just the two of us. We were online together. And I wish I should have been recorded. I might have recorded. I need to find it. Right at the end of the first episode, I'm like, Ben, I really liked it. And Ben's like, nah.
So it's pretty consistent, you and I, right? That's what I enjoy a lot. It's such a kick. Even if your experience is vastly different from your friends, you sit down and you enjoy it. It's like, dude, really? And then you compare notes. It's so enjoyable just to talk about. But so my excitement for the show deflated pretty quickly. And this episode also did not deliver. It's okay for me. When I say I don't like the show, it doesn't mean that I don't dislike everything about it. There are bits and pieces in this show that definitely are full of heart and feel inspired and feel like cool moments. But for me, it's two sides of the coin. If you have an overall generally interesting experience and there are a few bumps along the road, that's fine, right? You take it or leave it. Nothing is perfect out there.
Yeah.
But when it's in reverse and you have to look for the good spots, good moments to enjoy, then it's really, really distracting to me because I keep asking myself the question, why am I watching this? Why am I wasting my time? I want to be entertained. If I want to watch an exciting, thrilling 5-minute sequence, I could go to YouTube, see like a martial art fight, see a YouTube fan film, right? And get my enjoyment there because I'm not looking for a story. I'm not looking for cinema. I'm just looking to be just a quick fun moment there. But when you're watching a show, you come in with anticipation that there'll be this full canvas for, it doesn't matter what's the length, what's the format, but there'll be something to it that you enjoy this whole premise, not just extract parts of it. And I just felt that this show is generally misguided, unnecessary, very, very surface level, and its only staying power, in my humble opinion, is its nostalgia. And I think it's something that cannot be underestimated because the moment that you say, Ben, what do you mean just nostalgia, just feeling? That's all there is to it? Well, hold on a second. What do you mean
Keep going, Ben. I'm going to go turn off this light over here, but I'm listening. You're good.
Do your thing. What do you mean it's just nostalgia? There's nothing else, but it makes me feel special. And automatically you stop for a moment, you hit pause and you say, hold on a second. Do I start tackling the show critically and attacking every single point and say, look, I just like this, and this, and give a whole list of reasons why it's not good? Or you could say, look, I dislike it, but then you turn your eyes somewhere else and you start observing the audience around it. When you have professional writers on Twitter, Michael Stackpole, Matthew Stover, John Jackson Miller, talk about the show in a positive light, and then you say, hold on a second.
Kevin Scott.
Kevin Scott. Maybe there's something to it that I'm not catching. Obviously, I'm not a professional film critic or a film, buff. I watch a lot of films. But the point is that the staying power of nostalgia is feeling far outweighs the tangible and measurable cinematic qualities that we can observe in film, right? You can say, well, you know what? I don't think it's well-crafted picture, but gee, the way that it makes my kids react, or my spouse, or my friend, or even myself, why does that not count? It's all about high cinema. Who are we? It's always like professional critics when they go to Oscars, they see a very select few films. It's always politically driven. It's always highlighting the actors who, the most hot or in demand right now. And it's all rigged. Yeah. But here, it's something genuine is happening. So to me, my takeaway was, look, at the end of the day, I'm still happy that the show is made. I will stay behind my words that I said earlier. I would like to see season 2, to see where it goes, to see what kind of improvements they can affect, how can it fit itself better within, format of the Star Wars larger canvas that is unexpected and fun. But at this moment, all I see is I like. When I hear people say, this show is great, it's good, I love it, it translates to me, I enjoy it. It makes me feel good. It does not translate well put together, well thought out, well crafted cinema.
So, what's funny there is someone I love the show, as
Mhm.
you just heard Ben kind of go over, didn't meet his expectations. Funny enough, I don't want a season two, and Ben does. So I don't know what that
Mhm.
means. I guess the way I would put it for me, I mean, maybe it's as simple as I was satisfied with what I got. And so I feel very fine. Again, I said at the beginning for folks who are late, if I never see Hayden Christensen, although we're going to see him in Ahsoka in a flashback, I'm sure of it, or Ewan McGregor reprise these roles together, I want to maybe focus on that together.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy if this is my last memory of them together. And I'd be very happy one day to show, my future kids one day have never seen Star Wars. I'd be excited for them to see this moment with these two characters, right? I'd be excited. And so that to me makes it a worthy kind of part
Mhm.
of the Star Wars story. While Book of Boba Fett, which I really like, I'm not like going to be like, ooh, I can't wait for my kid to watch Book of Boba Fett. I'm going to kind of be like, oh, well, Book of Boba Fett's it's fun. I love Tamira Morrison. I love the whole cast. Okay. There's great moments in that show, but it's not to me on the same level, which is why yesterday, Ben and I on Twitter, I kind of questioned how he could have possibly liked Book of Boba Fett better, but we'll get into that later. Let me maybe lay the scene a little bit further as we get into specifics. Recently, I watched Jurassic World Dominion. That was supposed to be the concluding chapter, the sixth and final movie of the Jurassic series, right? All three of the first movies and all three of the new ones come together. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. Growing up, there was probably no series I liked more than Jurassic Park, more than Star Wars. I watched those movies on repeat. I love Jurassic Park 3 came out when I was really young, and it's objectively kind of bad, but I really liked it when I was little. Had all the Spinosaurus toys and everything. I
Mhm.
really liked Jurassic World, the new one. I know it was like The Force Awakens before it, or around the same time, frankly. Yes, it was kind of a rehash of the first one with just some new ideas. But both of those movies, I thought, took what was good of their predecessor, revamped them enough to make them feel fresh, but still it worked. After that, the series really went downhill for me. I did not like Fallen Kingdom. In fact, I would say I hated Fallen Kingdom. I really hated that movie. And then Dominion was really fine, lower tier fine. They made a choice to put a whole plot element in. I won't spoil that. To me, really was not very engaging, not very interesting, and it was so much of the movie that
Mhm.
even when there were those good moments and really cool character interactions, it just was like, okay, this thing is so bogged down. And so even though I got to see some of my favorite, because all the original cast is in there, Jeff Goldblum and
Right.
all the Dr. Grant and Ellie Settler, they're all there.
The
Um,
kids are new actors, though, right?
right.
Mhm.
But in the end, even when they had some really fun moments with those characters, it made me smile. Like, I'm kind of sad that that's my last Jurassic Park movie. That makes me
Mhm.
sad. I'm like, man, I wish we really would have ended. And so when I say, I'm very happy with how Kenobi wrapped up, I'm talking from the experience of like, I've had shows and franchise I really like end on that low note. It doesn't ruin I'm still going to love Jurassic Park and those movies, but you really would like that the ending at least be somewhat kind of heartwarming. And
Yeah.
so I hope for most people they found that with Kenobi, even though I might have liked it more than some. I hope everyone at least had some sort of, heartfelt experience there. So yes, first Jurassic World was actually really good because this is not a Jurassic Park stream, but it kind of flows into what we're talking about. Jurassic World was not a perfect movie, but it understood what worked in Jurassic Park. And I thought it had a lot of interesting ideas to add. Like, you actually saw a park open, right? So unlike the first movie where it never got off the ground, you got to see like what kind of attractions there could be and what kind of experiences you could have. It was fun. And then when things went awry, they went awry a little bit differently. And it was cool to see people in the park, like on the exhibits as they're getting chased versus like a rainy night where everyone thinks it's loose. So anyway, I thought it was a lot of fun. Copied the formula, but did it well. Now let's get into Kenobi finale here. What I really, I'll say the first thing I like about this, and I'll let you respond. The first thing that stuck out to me with this episode that I really appreciated, and this might have been a negative for some, I actually felt it was pretty focused. Meaning, we didn't spend a lot of time like we're getting chased. Where the last episode left us, episode 5, and we kind of just immediately progressed the plot. There were really two main storylines. There was Reva going after Luke, and there was Obi-Wan setting up his last fight with Vader. And it was pretty focused in that regard. And I kind of appreciated that because I felt like if they tried to add some new emotional subplot or new character or something, we didn't need it. And so it might have flowed better if episode 5 and 6 were one long hour and a half episode. I did appreciate that it stayed focused. I was a little worried they were going to meander, like, oh, Kenobi gets away and then he gets back and he drops off Leia. Oh, and then something inspires him to go back and fight Vader, something silly like that. I appreciated that the episode stayed really on track. I felt like it didn't meander a lot. It went right to the meat and potatoes, which I kind of appreciated because we did have 15 minutes roughly, and I didn't feel like any of the time was really wasted because there were some episodes in here in the series that did feel a little bit more like, plot for length's sake as opposed to actual, story. So anyway, what did you think about the length of the episode? What did you think about the pacing and the sort of storylines? Was there too much flashing back and forth for you? Was it too short? Any input there?
I thought this last episode represents what the entire show should have been, a lot more focused. For only 6 episodes, granted each one is almost an hour long, I felt there was too much fat around it and not enough emphasis on the central characters that this show should have been all about. This episode kind of handles it. I don't have any problems with it structurally. I just have problems with like everything that you put in the show, all of your ideas, all of your elements, all of your characters, how it's going to work, what are the parallel storylines running around, where it's all leading to. I don't have any issues what's in there.
Yeah.
I have an issue how it's all put together, which is completely flatlined for me. Like none of it works. But if we were talking about structure, to answer your question, to address it specifically, I think this was one of the more effective episodes in that regard, but it still failed to generate the quintessential things which I expect from a good story. Right? But as far as structure goes, yes, I do agree with you. We got to the nitty and gritty of it pretty fast. I made a comment in my video review that this is the episode where Reva's character finally emerges. She comes out of the cocoon, she spreads her wings, we know what she's all about. But it's a little too late. It's the final episode, and for the rest of the series, no hate on Moses Ingram. We you know how you, I, and Jimmy, we are all in full support of her. I think she is indeed a talented actress, and she shows her skill in this final episode. I can't say anything negative about her, honestly. Yeah. Not because he is a
You don't like the way the character was written.
There is no character. The character is non-existent because up until this point, she's a single note plot tool. She's a prop, like most of the characters in the show, like Tala, like that fake Jedi, like Bail Organa. Well, Bail Organa maybe a little bit more because of his interaction with Leia. His role is intended to be just to bounce against little Leia and make us understand what she's all about. I would say the only 2 real characters in the show are Leia and Kenobi. Once again, supported by good acting, supported by the most development throughout the show, but still not enough to tell me that what I'm looking at is character arc, a character progression. What I see is actors being put into situations, they respond to the situation, they react to them. Everything is reactionary in the show. And then we get to the point. And the culmination of all of it is spectacle, because I can't call the final battle anything else but spectacle. There is no visual narrative happening there. Everything that's happening, and once again, I'm measuring it up by the reactions, the response that I see on Twitter, on Instagram, how people react to this. And once again, I want to underline it, guys. There's nothing wrong with it. It is nothing that I want to take a jab at or be snarky about or criticize. If that's what it makes people feel, then the show has the right to exist. But it's something that is not enough for me. If you see Vader and his helmet and the whole thing going on with him, reprising the scene from Rebels in an interesting way, actually, not copying it, but doing a parallel for it. If that is enough for you, kudos to you guys. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Have a blast with it. To me, the only glimpse at what this show could have been was that very unexpected line exchange between Kenobi and Vader, where Kenobi says, look, once again, he's in that note where I failed you, Anakin. He's still dealing with his inner demons, right? Yeah. And he says, look, I'm sorry, it was me. And when Anakin responds, what struck me the most is it was unexpected.
Yeah.
Suddenly there is this one key note in this episode which is fresh, which is, wow, hold on a second. The Anakin reemerges. It's picture, voice acting, sound, everything comes together like this, like it's a glove. And it makes me even more frustrated because I think to myself, why isn't the rest of it on this level of competence? Because let me just make this point. I know I'm going a little bit off a tangent.
Okay.
This is what I think a lot of fans underestimate, because I feel that a lot of Star Wars fans, and I'm going to sound like a total snub here, are Star Wars movie watchers. They didn't go outside and beyond the vast landscape of world cinema. Most of what a young generation grows up with is Hollywood and Netflix and stuff that we absorb here. So when you're looking at the show like this and the reaction to the show like this, we're too much in it. We judge it as Star Wars fans. We don't judge it enough or criticize it enough as somebody who enjoys the film. And the importance here, the keynote here is, I would argue that telling a story visually is an art form. It's sequence by sequence, how you create shot by shot, how you create these emotional beats with effective dialogue lines, where they placed in the story, how they interact with one another, which scene proceeds and follows the next, what is the music doing there, what is the cameraing. It's such a precise, almost mathematical craft that if you don't know what you're doing, it exposes itself very quickly. You can, when we discuss something like Batman or Dune, the reaction is almost unanimous. You feel it's staying power. It affects you in many levels. And I don't think that comes from nostalgia or enjoying sci-fi or just visuals. It's just something that the filmmaker is doing, grabs your attention, it holds you until the end. That's what I don't see here. What I see here is the visual iconography, something that's, as I mentioned earlier, surface level, that we see it, we recognize it, we're associated with something that is so near and dear to our hearts, and we respond.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple comments there. I mean, I'll maybe just play with the last one you talked about there. And, this is something you and I just disagree about. I do judge Star Wars content against other Star Wars content. I personally, and whether I'm right or wrong for it, I consider Star Wars content its own kind of genre. I consider it its own thing. And I consider the stories within Star Wars, I do hold them to different standards than I might hold other properties. It's Star Wars to me, again, I'm not saying right or wrong, to me is its own section of pop culture. It has its own ecosystem, its own life, its own characters, and its own moments. I don't know how to explain it better than that. To me, I do. I mean, I absolutely do. Mm-hmm. Do I think, for example, anyone who knows my channel knows I'm a huge Batman fan.
Right.
Just a huge Batman fan. But I have to accept that a lot of people think that movie's kind of slow or think that movie's kind of grindy. It's like 3 hours long, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's some just fantastic cinematography, some fantastic character development and all that. But I can have just as much fun watching that, which I did 5 times in theaters, as I do watching, and I own it on Steelbook. I was talking about this with Ben before, and watching Kenobi last night. And even though they might be executed completely differently or have different kind of levels, that's just kind of, I guess, where I stand. I do judge Star Wars against Star Wars. And, one thing, Ben, that we've talked about, you do, this is just kind of ingrained in who you are. You have a film background. I mean, you not only have a love for cinema, but you've also even gone to school and studied the art behind it. So right. you have kind of a different eye and a different expectation than probably the average fan might. And so that's just something that we have that's a little different as well. You have an eye for things that sometimes I don't catch, or sometimes that just blow right by me in nuance. So I'll say that. Now, one other thing I wanted to say about your kind of points there, the moment you highlighted from the show that really worked for you, which was the Anakin and Obi-Wan confrontation. That was definitely my favorite moment of the show, easily. And to me, it's one of my favorite moments in probably all of Star Wars live action products we've had to see. I think it worked so well on so many levels, and moments like that make the show worth it for me in a lot of ways, right? Where you have that kind of payoff. I thought the fight was actually really good. We'll maybe talk into that mechanics, but
the choreography.
Yes, you have good, and it's in a different way. But you have this. You said unexpected. I think that might be fair. You have this kind of Anakin Darth Vader line that I was not expecting, and I think works the more I think about it, where when I first watched it, what really struck me with it is he's kind of he's now battle damaged, he's in pain, he's very angry. You can tell that through the performance.
Mm-hmm.
And he says this line, paraphrasing, where it's like, "Oh, you didn't kill Anakin, I killed Anakin." And what struck me about it is he says it almost like he's trying to take that away from Obi-Wan. Like, no, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. Like he almost looks at it, at least my feel on the first viewing, as he was being like a badass. He was like doing something to Kenobi, like, no, you didn't kill him. And what he doesn't realize, because he's so twisted and warped, is like that actually gave Obi-Wan kind of the full closure he needed. That was not like striking a blow to Kenobi. That was not like, he said it in this really like, no, because he didn't say it in like a, no, Obi-Wan, you didn't kill Anakin, I killed him. You don't have to feel bad about it anymore. He was like, you didn't kill him, I killed him. Basically like,
Josh, very quickly.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I had exactly the read that you said later. I almost felt like he lifted that weight from Kenobi's shoulders, because for a moment the good Anakin came out and he said, "Look, it wasn't your fault. Rest easy. It's the only consolation I can give you, because I see that you're also suffering." And I think it's deep inside, it also struck Anakin as well. Yeah. And he sees that. That's his form of message. No matter what, you can have a bitter, hateful relationship, but you still don't forget that this is your brother. This is your mentor. This is the person who raised you. It, once again, like you said, it elevates the show in that moment. But I just wanted to, I'll let you respond, but very quickly, I just wanted to circle back to my film background. I don't presume for a second that I don't know anything more about films that you guys do, and to compare Star Wars, how I look at it, like I don't sit with notes in a notebook. I'm like, every second. I live in it, and once it's over, then I judge. But when you say like, that Star Wars exists and lives in its all kind of like its own entity and its all parallel universe, I just go back to the time when we were kids and Star Wars was not the cream of the crop. There were so many other good movies on par with it, and you could just come back today and also compare unilaterally what is happening in the film and the TV show landscape and compare it to this and that, and also make an assessment that way. It doesn't have to be just a Star Wars bubble. Right?
Yeah, I think, and that, yeah, I mean, it's just different viewpoints. Star Wars is kind of the original MCU. No, it doesn't have the same structure, but it's the same kind of crossover event oriented. I mean this with the books too. Like you're a huge Star Wars book fan, much greater knowledge than me, much greater, width of stories read. When I read a High Republic book or Brotherhood, I kind of look at it as a Star Wars story. But when I'm reading other fantasy like Wheel of Time or the Stormlight Archives, I do view it differently. I don't compare them. It's just different. And so it's just kind of look at everything. So it is fascinating. But one thing what I kind of mean by you have a film background, your point's right. I'm not saying that you think you're smarter than us, right? But you have a different look. If your friend's a mechanic, he's very passionate about cars. He very much loves cars. I'm very happy with my my Ford Mustang. I think it's great. I'm very happy with it. My buddy's a car guy. The engine calibration on this model is bad. He'll pick up on nuances. He'll be looking for things that me, just the driver, am not going to see. And so that's what I can't help but believe that influences you. It just has to. It just has to.
It's part of my bias for sure.
It just has to. It absolutely has to. You have just an eye or an I don't want to say expectation. You have a different standard, maybe. I don't know the right word for it, but it does impact. If you're a chef, you look for flavor profiles different than me, who just loves a good fun meal.
Point received.
So to that moment though, that I like so much, I agree with the unexpected note there. I thought it was a very interesting thing for him to say, a very unexpected say. And I don't, you might disagree with me, Ben. I don't care, but I loved the voice of James Earl Jones and Hayden Christensen intermingled. I thought that was a really, really well done effect, a really haunting effect. And one thing that stuck out for me as well as I watched it for the second time, last night. Yes, it's the cracked mask effect that we saw. We've seen it in Rebels. We've seen it in I've seen it in toy statues before, even before that, comics, where it's a very cool look. It looked very skeletal to me. Something about the lighting very much looked like at certain angles, like it was very much like a skeleton, and they played with the light. I made a little video about this morning. Everyone probably noticed it. They played with the light. It was blue when Anakin first comes out, and when Obi-Wan is making that appeal, because he's immediately heartbroken when he sees his Padawan. He can't help but go back and be like, I loved Obi-Wan's whole response there too. Just saying, I'm sorry, he feels guilty. He feels like it's his fault. And so he's like, Anakin, I'm so sorry. And then you hear, Vader make his line, and the red lightsaber starts to take the predominant color on the face, right? Which I thought was kind of a fun little effect they did there as well. But I really, really felt the emotion in that moment between those two actors. I felt the charisma. I felt, that prequel era nostalgia for sure. But I really thought that was the highlight of the episode, the highlight of the whole show. And it's a moment I'm going to go back to time and time again throughout Star Wars. And just like I really like the Ahsoka versus Vader confrontation in Rebels, there are moments in those movies that mean something, that give you that feel, give you those goosebumps, And what I like there as well, to kind of move us over to the next point, leapfrogging off of that, is you said this, that Anakin was obviously affected, or Vader was obviously affected. Yeah, that to me is pretty clearly why he lost. And Palpatine kind of tells him as much in the ending kind of tirade. Vader was, he has that emotional connection to Obi-Wan. Like, as much as he wants to dismiss it, as much as he wants to get rid of it, I think it was really the last kind of example, I think, of, because I think it's the last time they meet. I think even in season 2, I can't believe they'd meet again, because it would be a lot of meetings. Even me, who has like a 25 to 30 minute video on my channel defending the possibility of a rematch before the show even came out. I didn't even see it. I just said it doesn't break canon. Even I would feel like, okay, well, 2 or 3 more encounters is really becoming a lot, So if that was their last moment, I felt like it was a really, and to me, I really like how you now look at A New Hope, where Obi-Wan is talking to Luke, and he tells him Vader killed his father. That's true. I mean, that's very much the case. And I thought the show did a really good job, from the snapping neck scene earlier, where it's like, oh wow, Anakin's really gone. Like, that is not Anakin. Yeah. I mean, it really drove home the point, because a lot of fans, even myself, has said like, yo, how did Anakin from episode 2, like when he turned to the dark side, he didn't just like say, okay, well, I'm going to fight my friends. And he just started butchering people, children.
Younglings.
Yeah, younglings. And you're like, how does he make that switch? How does he do that? I thought the show kind of continued that, like, no, like the dark side is a full conversion. He is Darth Vader. And I liked the at the end when he's like, goodbye, Darth. It definitely calls back to in A New Hope when he calls him Darth, which felt,
that was my reverie. That was my swan song. That single word for me meant a lot, where at the very least the filmmaker recognized the evolution of the franchise and the character, and it calls him by his first name, which is Darth. It's not a goddamn title, dude. It's a name.
Well, that's what's and so, not to go on a tangent here, but when people talk about George Lucas's vision, Ben, you're pretty fair here, where we all recognize George changed things dramatically. So when he wrote Darth Vader, it definitely was not a title, but then all of a sudden there was Darth Sidious and Darth Thread. It's like, so people were always like, wait, why did you just call him Darth? One thing I liked in that moment, when you watch the Clone Wars and even Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan's a little sassy. Like, he could be a little snarky, technically in Phantom Menace too. And that kind of last line, his, goodbye, Darth, felt a little bit like that, a little sassy, a little bit like,
I did not feel any sass in that moment. All I saw was heartbreak. And once again, that rare moment of tension where, the director is running her final laps and she's like, you know what? I'm going to squeeze my last ounce of strength, and I'm just going to make it to the finish line, and I'm going to be the first.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with Blue Milk Mama here. If they do another season of Kenobi, I don't think Hayden will be in it. They'll probably do, if they do another season, I would like it to be something like way different type of mission. It can't be a Luke or Leia type of mission.
Take it to the Clone Wars.
Well, one thing, that'd be interesting. One thing that I liked about the end of the show that kind of set up is, Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith was tasked with being this protector of Luke, right? Which was never really alluded to in the original trilogy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't recall any of that in New Hope, right? It wasn't like, Obi-Wan never is like, oh yeah, I've just been camping out here for 20 years waiting for you. That was never obvious to me. I mean, maybe it was implied. At the end, I love that one thing I liked was that he seemed to kind of get that closure to realize like, hey, and I thought, just a little side note, we can talk about this in more detail, but Uncle Owen finally got his character arc. He got his like, hey, maybe he's not he got the most redemption in this show at anyone, right? I think the Uncle Owen's stock is higher than it's ever been. But I really liked that at the end. He was, I just loved his presence at the end. This kind of calm, mission focused, like, you know what, he is in good care, and he should be a boy. And he had let go of fear. I thought it was so clear that he was, because there was fear Obi-Wan had when he was watching over Luke. There was not that Jedi balance clarity that he should have. He had received kind of inner, and that's why he sees Qui-Gon at the end, right? Because he had he
didn't catch the Easter egg, yeah.
And I really liked at the end this not just the clean cosmetics of him, but the personality shift from episode 1 to then. He was very much more in control, more confident. He strolled up to Owen, not kind of like groveled up to Owen, like, can I see the boy? He just was like, you know what, you're right. Went right up to the place. You're right. He should be a boy. You guys are doing a great job. Owen lets him have his little moment to say hello there. But I liked how, I love Ewan's acting throughout this episode in particular. And I'm just highlighting that where we leave the character at the end, he does such a good job with the character. He really does. And I feel that he has even evolved the character a little bit to get closer to the Alec Guinness version we see in A New Hope. So anyway, that was one thing that from the moment of the mask crack all the way up to the end, I thought all the acting from Ewan was just really, really good. And before we leave the scene, I'd be remiss to say, I thought Hayden Christensen's did a really good job. Acting with a half covered face, voice modulation. I felt a lot of pain. It felt right out of the prequels. Their chemistry to me was still there. That brotherhood was there. I think that was just something I want to give him credit for as well, because so many people earlier in the show were like, why did they bring him back just to show him in like a cloak and see episode 3? Why did you bring him back? And I'm like, that moment alone, it had to feel so nice for the actors too. Like, I'm just thinking of even bigger picture, like for them to be so further on in their careers and their lives to, Hayden's a farmer with kids, he's living kind of a peaceful life, and Ewan's acting career has been really successful. I just imagine for them to do that scene, and they've talked about this in their interviews, how it was just so heartwarming. It was something that ended on a poor note for them. Revenge of the Sith ended, fan backlash was huge. They kind of wanted to forget Star Wars. So I'm not saying, I just like to see that, long story short. I like to see that they had that moment, and I don't know, it was really good to me. So I want to give Hayden a lot of, it made me happy to see him have a moment, a really emotional, good moment.
I would say that the conclusion to the season, with the whole interaction with Uncle Owen, the homestead, the Luke. Yeah. I loved the fact that they don't dwell on the interaction between him and Luke. He just says hello there and leaves, right? And then we see Qui-Gon Jinn at the end. It's like, this is why you couldn't see me. Giving that cameo a little bit more gravitas and saying like, was there all along. It's almost like Luke Skywalker's hide and seek game with The Force Awakens, where the entire movie is about him. The entire script is based on him. And his presence can be felt throughout the entire film, but you only get the candy at the end, kids. You gotta wait, you gotta be patient, and that's your reward. And it was quite rewarding to see him. Yeah. Once again, I would say that we kind of settled down and we land with this very satisfying, peaceful moment. But I can't help once again but say that it feels unearned, because throughout this whole stuff, like everything that I hear you describe with such passion, it's my interpretation of it. I feel like you guys are drawing upon stuff that you take away from Star Wars prequels. What is happening here, like if you for a moment, which is impossible to do, but if you just for a moment you take the prequels and put them on the side here. There's nothing happening here cinematically to evoke these kind of emotions. That's my argument. You can completely disagree. I think it is completely dependent on the feels and nostalgia and visual iconography, what happens in the past, for you to say, yeah, well, you see, he said this line. So this is, once again, I want to reiterate the point that telling a story takes a little bit more than for a character to throw up a dialogue line on the screen and for us to deduce this is what's happening. Give you an example. When we watch, and Jimmy and I, we had a little like Twitter exchange where he said, well, I wouldn't compare it to other things. I would absolutely compare Star Wars to everything else, because creative space, artistic space is a competitive space, and you always should strive for something better. So I will absolutely compare it here to something that I enjoy. Logan, when you see the first 5 minutes of that film, you understand, whether you saw 20 previous years worth of X-Men franchise, which are amazing, or you didn't, you just on the strength of this film alone, the first 5 minutes, you get the entire concept of this film and who this character is. This ravaged by time, heartbroken husk of a mutant who is the last of his kind, and he's so savage that he's fighting for life. He's fighting for his life. You understand the concept is 5 minutes. The difference is you are dealing with a Star Wars Disney Plus directive novice versus a masterclass film director who knows exactly what he's doing. I guarantee you, when you're dealing with a filmmaker like this, every single frame, every single shot counts, because once again, as I said, all of that combined together should give you that kind of feeling. Not driving back home and saying, well, you remember in them days, people would sometimes accuse me of saying, well, Ben, maybe you're drawing too much in the past and you're being a grumpy old guy and saying, in my old days. I'm anything but, because I don't care about the past. I take my personal Star Wars original trilogy baggage and I'm put here in a little cabinet compartment over there. I don't care about it. Like, I remember before the show started, I told you, I don't need it to connect with the original trilogy. I don't need it to connect with anything else. Show me something that I could completely scratch my face and say, well, hold on a second. That's quite a different take on Obi-Wan Kenobi as character, sort of like they do with the DC Comics and Batman, right? Frank Miller's version of Batman is entirely different from the original. Yet again, something in it that you observe and you look at it and you say, wow, hold on a second, but there's so much strength and vitality in the story. Yeah, you know what? I'll take this version of Batman. It's quite different, but it's interesting. In here, nothing is happening transformatively or narratively for me to even identify Kenobi.
Well, so, and you and I disagree here, right? I mean, yeah. My kind of opinion on your first comment is I can't, like, I totally understand what you're saying, right? And you could say, so probably a better example could be like Joker, right? It's a movie that comes out, it's representing a beloved character, very popular character, and it tells a really interesting story with a whole new take, kind of like a comparison to Dark Knight.
And unrelated to previous material.
Yeah, unrelated. But for me, I hear what you're saying about it requires you, the viewer, to pull on experience and knowledge past to make these connections.
Yeah.
And my view is kind of like, well, yeah, it's an extension of that story. And again, I understand this might not work for you, but I don't think what this show is it's an extension of those first three movies. It 100% is banking and fully believing that you've seen them and you love them. It is not in any way trying to tell its own standalone interesting story. I acknowledge that, but I think what most fans would prefer is something that tied right into the characters they know and love and the moments they've had together and expands upon those. And so I think the director is doing exactly what Disney perceives most fans want to see. I guess I could say it like that. And so, sometimes I tend to believe, and I'm not saying you said this, but this might be kind of an argument, is that, well, sometimes I hear people say, well, you're giving the director too much credit. Like, you're reading into these things that probably weren't there. You're just pulling on things past. Sometimes, maybe not always, but sometimes I tend to believe that the director or the creative leads they had at the Lucasfilm powers to be, who are their lore experts or whatever, are putting those in there for fans. They're aware of them. They did them intentionally, and some fans are catching them. Sure, some of them might be just lucky, and fans read into them, make whole arcs around them. But that's kind of my thought there. And then finally, I would just say one thing about Logan and Joker and Dark Knight that frees them is they pay no mind to canon that came before them. Only thing Logan kept the same was the actor, right? It might reference, yes, it keeps two of the lead actors from those early X-Men films, but the X-Men films in general tend to be really inconsistent in their canon. That's very freeing to the director. It's very freeing to the director of Joker, who just told whatever the heck story he wanted, set in whatever the heck town he wanted, and Star Wars doesn't quite have that luxury. And to something you and I have talked about, I'd love to see those types of Star Wars stories too. That's why I love Vision so much. I think it's phenomenal. That's why we like the High Republic and other stories like that, where they're freed from the confines of canon and safety, and they're forced to kind of forge their own stories. For a project like Kenobi, I just feel differently. I feel like it kind of has to be really well knitted in between canon and has to assume, what comes before and what comes after. Even though A New Hope, which started all of Star Wars, didn't have any of that advantage, kind of to the fault of George Lucas, and I say the fault loosely, because of George Lucas, we now have that full canon continuity because he went back and made 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And that in a lot of ways kind of put expectations and things in Kenobi that are just a side effect of that kind of tight-knit universe that they've built. So
I make two very quick points.
You can, yeah.
First one is, I think when you said, sometimes when maybe fans are being accused of reading too much into content, I think it's every storyteller's and filmmaker's obligation to give you just enough source material to engage your mind and your imagination and start drawing these conclusions. If you supply every bit of information, then you don't have a story there.
Sure.
Right. Then all you have to do is sit down and react to a picture.
Yep.
I think every good story, every engaging story, and I think this is why, at the very least, Kenobi is very relevant, is the fact that you and I are at the very same time, in real time, are drawing very different conclusions.
Yeah.
The only second point that I wanted to make is that I don't mind the reliance on the legacy and the past experience of what Star Wars is and continuing that story. What my argument is that Deborah Chow is using the feels and nostalgia as a crutch because there's nothing else going for the show.
Sure. Understand. No, understand completely.
Yeah, that's my criticism.
Yeah. I don't view it as a crutch. I view it as the payoff. Like, you're here to see this.
What I'm saying is that those feelings are important and essential, and it's good to have them. But there's just everything else is so paper thin that it's not rewarding for me.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we just won't, we just won't agree fully, and that is.
Guys, we're still friends by the end of this podcast. By the time the live stream ends, we'll shake hands on it.
I mean, it can be, it can be hard. I mean, one thing, that's a challenge online, especially, is it's hard to disagree with people about something you really like. Like, it's not when you're really passionate about something, you really like it, and you hear someone complain about it, it can be frustrating, right? It could be like, oh man, or vice versa. If someone's like, golly, this is the best thing I've ever seen, and you're like, man, how the heck did you see that? I'll use Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange came out recently. I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a lot weaker than a lot of fans felt. And so I put a tweet out when I came home, and I was like, I said something along the lines of, I just saw Multiverse of Madness. Didn't really work for me. I'll be curious to see what other fans think. And I left it up for about 10, 15 minutes, and I ended up deleting it. And it's not because I'm afraid of sharing my opinion. I made a whole 20-minute video about what I thought the Book of Boba Fett could have done better. It's not that. But what I personally like to do is, I've gone through some things as a fan with the DC universe. Man of Steel, a movie that meant a lot to me, that a lot of people didn't like. And I thought BVS, Batman vs Superman, especially the director's cut, was actually really, really good and really undervalued. And then those movies just got trashed. I mean, all the time. I mean, completely trashed and ridiculed. And it was really tough because I really liked those characters, and I was constantly told they were bad. And I couldn't escape it. I felt like every movie reviewer in unrelated reviews would bring it up. And even though it's easy to say, Josh, I mean, you can like whatever you like. It's up to you. It's hard when you feel like something you care about, something you have feelings for, is being, for lack of a better word, attacked. That's probably an over aggressive word, but you can't help but feel that emotion to want to defend it or stand up for it. And so, I put that tweet out, even though it was kind of mild. I ended up deleting it because I was like, I don't want to ruin other fans who saw the movie and had a great time. And I start, because even if they love me and they love my content and they love talking with me, they can't probably help but defend what they're passionate about. And it can be hard to disagree about things you're passionate about. And so, Ben and I disagree with a lot of what Ben said. And that's okay. It can be hard to kind of balance it because, it's, you love stuff or you have emotional.
I think the easiest thing in the world, to summarize what you're saying, it's the easiest thing in the world. You could actually have a fun debate, enjoy your differences of opinion, and become even more bonded in friendship because you recognize the value of an opinion and you understand that the person sitting next to you, the one you're talking to, his opinion is as much valid, and that you kind of trust in that person's worldview and his insight, that he has accumulated at least the same degree of wisdom to understand and interpret picture and say, hey, Ben, I saw A, you saw B. Wow, fascinating. Let's move on. That's all there is to it.
One thing I think, well said, Ben. And one thing I think that makes it harder, that this show has really bogged me down with a little bit, and people who've been with my channel a long time know that I kind of feel strongly about this. There is, in today's society, in today's social media, YouTube, Twitter society, there is a real negativity. Negativity is encouraged. It's profited. It gets you good interactions. It gives you good money. It gives you good hot takes of any kind, honestly, are really profitable. And Star Wars Theory put out a tweet yesterday. I'm not criticizing Theory, by the way. He put out a tweet saying, hey guys, let me know down below what you thought on the episode. He said, nothing wrong, nothing mean. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. Right. But I looked through the comments and there were some people in there who don't like the show, just like my buddy Ben here. And maybe I'm just reading into it. There are some fans I'm reading and I'm like, I know you were never going to like the show. Your mind was made up long before it came out, and you are actively, they're in that negative space. And for people who've seen, I made a video a long time ago. One of my favorite videos ever made, like no one watched it. It was, I think, how The Mandalorian season 2, like saved Star Wars for me, which is kind of a crazy title. It didn't really, but where I talk about after, The Rise of Skywalker, Mandalorian season 1, I was pretty checked out on Star Wars. I really didn't like how the sequel trilogy ended. Mandalorian came out, and I was one of these fans online who was so bitter. Oh, it's overhyped. Everyone just likes it just because Disney put it out there. Fans aren't discerning. It's this bland show. I'm not saying this online, but I'm saying this to my friends,
Right.
And I became really, bogged down, and the algorithm loves that. It gives you videos of people ripping those shows, and it's like, I'm in that same headspace. And it wasn't until, Mandalorian season 2 comes out, and I'm like, oh, of course I'm going to watch it. Guys, here's the thing. I didn't finish Mandalorian season 1 when it came out. I watched the first 5 episodes. I was like, I'll watch some other time. I don't feel like it. I was that kind of jaded. And then Mandalorian season 2 came out, and I thought it nailed the heart and the fun and all the connection to the Clone Wars. And again, whether that's just nostalgia and just whatever, it worked for me. And I remember by the end of it, I was like, I'm being silly. Like, who cares that I didn't like those sequel trilogy movies? I loved Star Wars. I love the prequel era. There's still exciting things coming out. I'm back in. I'm back in. I'm back excited. And then I was like, I want to read more I want to get into more Star Wars. And right about that time, right after the end of season 2 Mandalorian, they dropped The High Republic. And that's when I started reading Star Wars books. This is only last year, really, that I kind of, my love was kind of reignited. And so I know how people can get in that space, how they can get in that, that even if they don't realize it, because I've been there, we're like, you are predisposed to not liking something because you're bitter about it. You're angry about it.
Sometimes it's not the show. Sometimes it's you, where I hate it equates to it's not what I wanted.
Yes.
It's that privileged, self-centered kind of vibe to your opinion. Like, your opinion matters more. When I was interviewing Kenneth Flint, the writer of Heart of the Jedi, I spoke about opinions of his audience, and not specifically to his book that people now have the chance to react to, but his independent work as well. And he said, well, you know what? It's for me, it's such an arrogant stance to not only it's okay to have an opinion. Like, if you don't like my books, you probably won't read them. It's fine. I'll find my audience. But he goes, I find it such an arrogant phenomenon when somebody needs to display their opinion publicly and for other people to see it and acknowledge it. It's like, well,
Yeah.
who are you to judge it if professional critics, literature critics, can't make up two minds about the same thing? Who are you to judge it or criticize? Have you written a book?
I totally get it. And, it's a balancing act. All that long side thing aside, the reason I go into this detail and the reason, Ben and I even do this show together, one of the reasons is I think the Star Wars fandom in particular is really vibing with the let's get angry about everything. And I'm not saying everyone, it's definitely a small subset, but it is a very argumentative fandom. And guys, I don't want to criticize my own fandom because I love it, but I got to be honest with you, there's not many fandoms or groups I've been a part of that really suck the fun out of things any faster than Star Wars fan. I mean, I'll watch an episode and be like, wow, that was fantastic. And then I get online or get my comments and I'm like, golly, I just should have deleted the internet. Like, and I find it can be impactful. We have such an exposure to people's views more than we used to. It used to be like you had your kind of friend group, your family, and you would have kind of your feelings about a movie. And I'm telling you, Ben, when Revenge of the Sith came out, I had no idea that people didn't really like the movie. I loved it. I thought it was great. My friends liked it. I just went on with my life. I never really ever dwelled. And you've heard a lot of older movie stars talk about this. Like back in the day, you saw a movie, you liked it or you didn't, you moved on. But now with Rotten Tomatoes and YouTube and everything, it's like they start to have this kind of life of their own and this whole fanfare around it. And I just, it can be a hard environment to be in, just candidly for myself.
What's the comparison I could make? It's when you were having your first Super Nintendo or Nintendo and you had your Castlevania game. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. And because the controls weren't perfect, the level design wasn't perfect, you basically had to get around it to master the game and still get the full enjoyment out of it because you didn't have 25,000 consoles and Castlevanians around, right? Your choices were limited. And today, when IGN reviewers talk about all of these games, there's nuanced understanding of the mechanic, or is it Metroidvania, and they go layer it all before you. I'm like, dude, it was so simpler back in the day. You pop in the cartridge, you either like it or you don't. It's like you shelf the game indefinitely if you disliked it, or if you really enjoyed it, you didn't complain or bitch about its shortcomings because you had to overcome, because that's all you had to play with.
I got to say a couple things. Chat just had a couple comments I really want to pull up. First of all, Barb's Basement, I love this comment. And Ben and I had a discussion about this kind of recently where I 100% agree with you. I say the exact same thing. There's been a narrative flip where now everyone's like, oh, the sequel trilogy was all terrible. I'm like, I was in the theater. We all were having a great time watching The Force Awakens. Everyone liked it. All the big Star Wars YouTube channels today blew up in that era. All of them blew up because everyone was so excited about Star Wars. Yeah. And because the second movie was divisive and the third movie was kind of, not great, right? It's like the narrative's completely changed. Everyone's had the sequel trilogy. We've hated them since day one, right? But that's not true. People liked this movie. I'm sorry. People really liked The Force Awakens. So I totally agree here. I want to spend some time just highlighting that. The internet told them not to pick on Star Wars Theory. I have his hat somewhere. I bought a hat from him. I like the guy.
You have his hat? Nice.
I did buy one of his hats. I like the guy, but like he liked The Force Awakens. There's like he liked it. Okay. Like he really liked it. And then I see his comments. I see his Twitter comments. He's kind of bombarded with negativity. I think it's rubbed off on him a little bit. And I can imagine, because when you make videos and then people comment every 5 seconds telling you're an idiot, I think eventually you might get kind of tired of it. So speaking from experience. Another thing,
went back on his words and he's saying that he doesn't enjoy.
No, I'm not sure that I'm not sure he's saying this like Force Awakens.
Can't change their minds. I changed my mind a lot about prequels, and I have so much more fun times with them now. Like it's okay with people to state one thing because we'll all change. Yeah. Life it's a stream, right? You can't step into the same river twice.
I will say this: Star Wars Theory did like The Last Jedi, and I remember his review right after he liked it, and then the internet slowly went cold on it, and I think he did too. And then this comment from Scott I wanted to call out because Ben, I've said this exact same thing to you in our prequel podcast on your channel, where Revenge of the Sith was the first movie I saw in theaters where the good guys didn't win, and that was one of the reasons it was so impactful for me. And so I like this call out here quite a bit. Okay, back to Kenobi, just closing thoughts, because I want to talk a little about the future. I thought Kenobi, for me, was really, really a worthy part of Star Wars anthology. Again, for folks who joined late, I am not saying it's perfect. I hate that I have to say this every time. I'm not saying it's perfect. There were execution things that would have changed. There were maybe pacing things that would have changed. It might have worked better as like a 2.5 hour movie. I agree. It very well might have.
Good point.
But the end, to me, where the show ends, I don't just mean the last episode. I mean, when I look back at the whole package, there are enough moments in here that were really, truly awesome Star Wars moments to me. And in particular, this last episode gave me one interaction between Hayden and Ewan that is one of my favorite all-time live-action Star Wars moments. And I will never dread rewatching this. I will look forward. One of my buddies isn't watching Kenobi because he's on the, I don't like Star Wars since Disney bought it. So I have these people, my friends can be like this too, guys. I'm trying to convert him. And I really want him to push him to watch this because I know he's a prequel fan like me. And I know, knowing his taste, he'll really love what this episode has. And so I really like Kenobi. I think it's actually one of the better Disney Plus shows. We're going to talk about that as we talk about the future. I think it's one of the better Disney Plus shows. And I think it had a chance to be really terrible. It had a chance to really be terrible. You took some beloved characters. You took a really kind of niche timeline where you're kind of beholden to what came before, what after. You have to make it work. You can't step on toes. They added new characters who, in my opinion, did not detract, even though maybe there were moments that could have been tighter. And you gave us a confrontation between two legends, and it didn't feel, to me, terrible. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel unearned. I feel like their final fight was rewarding. And I actually really, now that I sit here, A New Hope is enhanced to me. The Alderaan, I have such more feelings for Alderaan than I ever did before. I have such an appreciation for Bail Organa. I have such a love for what they did there with Uncle Owen and with Aunt Beru. I think they did a fantastic job there. And I really like, and some people don't, you guys have told me in my comments, but I really like that Vader and Anakin's legacy has now been like a rivalry throughout time as opposed to two confrontations ever. I like this constant opposition. And I really liked in this one, you saw that heartbreak from Obi-Wan because you didn't see it in A New Hope. You did not see it. And it's always bothered me that when he saw his old student, we were told, or we were led to believe, again, the wording is very cliche, is very vague, but we saw where they landed in Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan's attitude in A New Hope never lined up for me. He never looked like he was confronting his lost brother, but he did here. And so now when they meet again, it makes total sense to me. Obi-Wan has found he knows Anakin's dead. He's come to terms with that. Anakin's dead. And so when he smiles and lets Vader kill him, it makes total sense to me now. And so this is enhanced New Hope for me. It does. It has. And it won't for everyone. It won't for Ben probably, but it did for me. And so I think it was a completely worthy show. And what could have had really disappointing, like a really disappointing show, I thought ended up being very, very solid. It had some of my favorite moments in live action Star Wars. So that's my bow on the top of Kenobi and why I'm happy with it. So I moved to Alderaan for about 8 years. Well said. Well said. Well said. So I don't know, Ben, is there anything more about Kenobi? I know you've said, kind of how you feel like there was a lot left to do. Yeah,
I'm going to be in there supporting friends and fans like you who enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it didn't do anything for me. It didn't recontextualize or change Star Wars for better or for worse. It's just kind of there on the periphery.
Can I jump in real quick, Ben? I want to jump in there because even if you don't like it like Ben,
right?
I think one thing we can agree on is it did not ruin or change Star Wars.
No.
And I really want to highlight on that because one of the biggest complaints, and Ben does not agree with this at all, and I don't either, but one of the biggest complaints about the sequel trilogy is that it ruined Star Wars. No. It took the ending of those characters and completely botched it, right? It gave Han a terrible ending. It gave Luke this, we don't like Luke. It gave Palpatine this weird comeback. A lot of people said it ruined Star Wars. I think even the most cynical, angry fan could admit, like, okay, well, it didn't ruin. It didn't I can never look at Vader the same way, or I can never look at Obi-Wan.
Just go back and watch those. Like, grow up, dude.
I just want to make that.
Does not revolve around Star Wars. Like, come on.
I just want to highlight that it did not ruin Star Wars. So go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
Ruin Star Wars. It's just, again, I'm not coming away from it bitter or disappointed. It's just my tiny bit of frustration comes with like, ooh, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Am I going to get all the nuance in the world? Is it going to bring that magic back? No, I have to wait a little bit more. Ooh, is it going to be Andor? Maybe kind of, sort of. Look, every time they announce a new show, I'm not like thrilled or gasping for air with anticipation, but I'm looking forward to it. It's like, hey, maybe this is another chance. Maybe this is I want to be in it. I want to be in Star Wars. It has been a focal point of my life for such a long time. Look, you could either abandon it. It's completely, totally unhealthy to fixate on something that you're so passionate about and then start Twitter wars with somebody. Like, dude, go occupy your time and do something else. But if you want to be in it, if you want to be relevant, if you want to be part of the conversation, focus on the things that you like. That does not mean you can't be critical. That does not mean you can't express your voice. Do it by all means, but do it in a way with consideration to other fans who might feel otherwise. And look, once again, it all comes back to your humanity and your intellectual wisdom. It's like, what, you think your opinion is better somebody else's? You think your worldview or your world experience supersedes anyone else? Hell no. Look, I'm 10 years your senior, Josh. I'm 10 years older than you are. I have lived across 2 different continents in a completely different cultural, social, and political environments. I lived during Soviet Union. I lived in America.
Yep.
During a very, very pivotal moment, like the mid-90s and the waves of immigration. Do I think my Star Wars opinion is any more relevant than yours? Benjamin had film school education. No. I think it's enough to watch enough films and have enough like acute, sharp mind to say, ooh, I see, notice this little moment. Sometimes you don't even have the necessary tools to articulate it well. I'm not nearly as articulated as, for example, Star Wars Theory. I enjoy the way this guy expresses his thoughts. I really do. I think he's a very articulate dude. Whether I agree with him or disagree, I'm like, sometimes I look at these YouTubers, I'm like, or Alex from Star Wars, not Theory, Star Wars, the other one. Explain, yeah. He's so articulate. I enjoy it so much. And when he does character parallels, he talks about Easter eggs. I'm like, oh, I wish I could express myself this well. We're all in the same basket. We're all Star Wars fans, and I think we all bring equal value to it. So, in regards closing statements with the Kenobi show, look, at the end of the day, I'm happy that it happened because we have fans who are standing behind it, are enjoying it, having a good time. Maybe something else will come off it. Maybe a spin-off video game will come out. They'll be like, oh, shoot, I like the video game. Look, just to give you the most immediate example, here is the Kenobi show, and here's the Kenobi book, Brotherhood. Dude, I loved the heck out of that book. Hey, if I keep getting books right next to something that I have to frown about a little bit, I'm cool with it.
One thing I found from knowing Ben, and he might disagree with me, this is just my observation as his friend, is I think, Ben, you strike me, at least within the last 2 years we've been doing this, 1.5 years, animation and books are just really, really work for you in Star Wars recently, in recent history. Yeah. And the live action projects haven't quite met your expectations. I'm talking Mandalorian book, Boba Fett. I'm talking a lot of the sequel trilogy and Kenobi as well. Maybe outside of Solo and Rogue One and The Last Jedi, which you really liked. But even then, I don't think you're a huge Rogue One fan. I think you maybe like it. I don't know if you're a big fan. But...
8 out of 10. I enjoyed that movie. Okay. Just one major flaw with it.
The point I'm making, regardless, is that we can all find very different enjoyment in certain things in Star Wars. I mean, Ben probably reads double the Star Wars books I do a year, and we both adore the animation. And speaking of which, let's transition the last maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes here to talk about what comes next for Star Wars. The next big live action project is Andor, which I think we both enjoyed the trailer. I'm very much excited for this show. It's going to be an interesting era of Star Wars, and it seems like we're going to get a very different perspective, very much boots on the ground inside the Imperial Senate with what might be the most, Mon Mothma might be the most interesting part of the show for me. How did the politics transition from the prequel era, where it's like, okay, guys, I'm now going to be Supreme Chancellor. What kind of maneuvering was there? What kind of scheming? I'm very excited for that. And it seems like there were shots in there of the Imperial Senate. There were shots of them in it looked like almost Senate dinners where Mon Mothma has wine with these group of other politicians. So that could be really intriguing for me. So I'm very excited about Andor, but honestly, I don't condone you looking at leaks, everyone, but go watch the leak trailer for Tales of the Jedi from it's shot from someone's cell phone, so it doesn't look great, by the way. Peek the phone wallpaper here, phone case. Go watch that, because even though it's not maybe what I was hoping maybe a whole new animated show in a different era of Star Wars. Instead, we're getting more Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. Golly, does it look just fantastic. And then Bad Batch season 2 as well. Yeah, and Bad Batch season 2 as well. So those are the next big 3 projects. And I got to be honest with you, Ben, like, this is going to be an insanely exciting year for me, because Bad Batch, you and I both love season 1. I have my Hunter hot toy pre-ordered, should be here in the next couple weeks. So I'm going to have Hunter in all of his glory somewhere on maybe the shelf of here somewhere. I love that show, and I am absolutely thrilled for season 2. And then Tales of the Jedi as well. So even if you're not a big live action fan, or you've been wary of live action content, there's stuff for you coming in animation. Of those upcoming projects, Ben, of Andor, where's your mindset at now? Kenobi didn't work for you. See, it worked for me. So I'm like, woo, more Star Wars, right? Yeah. But as someone who maybe wasn't excited with Kenobi, of these upcoming projects, how are you feeling? What are you looking forward to? Where's your mind at?
For me, the announcements were all pretty interesting. I got to say, the Andor trailer did exactly for me what Rogue One trailer did. When the first trailer came out, the anticipation was like, do we really need this movie? Who's looking for how they stole it? But when we saw the trailer, we all knew we wanted something that we didn't realize. Same with this one. You watch the trailer, it builds so much excitement there. I'm not going to use the word wary. I'm cautiously optimistic. Yeah. I want to see what they do with a different format. It's going to be a longer show. They still haven't announced the episode length, right? And pretty much they won't.
I think it's 2 seasons for Andor. I think it's 2 seasons, 12 episodes each. Chat, tell me if I'm wrong.
12 episodes each, not longer. I
think it's 24 episodes total
or something episodes.
I think they shortened it, but go ahead. I'll look it up. You go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm interested with the format. I'm interested with how they're going to do it. Maybe, as you said, maybe this one will feel different. Kenobi certainly felt different.
It did.
From Mandoverse, right? Yes. So that was already a good step in the right direction. Let's see what they do here. Maybe once again they'll hit me something was unexpected. I think it's the best way to go into it. Just cold, man. Just wait for it. As far as the Bad Batch season 2 goes, I'm automatically sold. Like, if Dave Filoni asks me to sell my soul to the devil tomorrow, that's exactly what I'm doing. Because in return, I know I will get the Star Wars that I'm looking for. He got my back, man. He's my Putin, man. He's the guy I go. We're gonna get canceled, right? He is the guy. By the way, I don't support Putin, guys. Relax. But he's the guy that you go to. That it's like, bro, you have my trust. Just do your thing. Once again, going in cold, because you know what? Anything could happen. Budgetary limits, change of ideas, change of 100 different things could happen. And look, I don't even put everything that happens with Kenobi specifically on Deborah Chow. I bring her name often because she has the director's credit. She gets the full responsibility of what we see on the end screen. But honestly, behind the screen, there's so many moving pieces, moving elements. Who knows why the show comes out the way that it does, right? So once again, I think the best way to go in is to be cold. I'm excited for Andor. I'm excited for the Bad Batch. The only rickroll in this entire announcement was the Tales of the Jedi. Once again, I'm not mad about it. I just kind of scratched my head for 5 minutes. I was confused. Bro, like, why would you take Tales of the Jedi is my sacred ground. This is where I get emotional, super biased, and like just like bitchy and sassy like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, oh my God, man. Oh my God. Let me tell you about Tales of the Jedi. Yep. And they use that logo, and it's like pretty cool. So I'm like, that's totally fine, dude.
Bed in shambles at home.
Star Wars show is phenomenal. Everything that Dave Filoni touches, he understands the spirit and soul of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Plus, he has the director's know-how that unfortunately George Lucas lacked a little bit. And I know he's going to bring it all together.
This was his passion project. Tales of the Jedi was definitely his passion project. So one thing I want to say as well, to kind of, as we're thinking here about upcoming Star Wars, I'd be remiss to not mention that John Williams retired from movie. Blue Milk Mama getting sassy. I like it. Retired from movie scoring. So Star Wars, the sound of Star Wars, the voice of Star Wars cinema music, retired from filmmaking today. Meaning he's not going to do movie scores anymore. He'll still do some conducting and directing. He is very old, so well-deserved retirement and deserves a ton of credit, even though this is going to sound crazy, I know. John Williams is a fantastic conductor. Some of his songs and his iconic scores, I mean, some of the most iconic of all time. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorite emotional moments in the prequels are so enhanced by his hand. And he has some of the most recognizable music of all time in the worldwide. The Imperial March,
modern Mozart, man.
My goodness. What's crazy is John Williams' style, his very classical writing and directing style, conducting style, are not actually my personal preference. I'm much more into a little bit of like the Hans Zimmer era, which is, some people would say, the very grandiose, epic, very cinematic, very more new age, also equally respected, right? Talking about Dune, right? Just an absolute masterpiece there of the score. Even though John Williams has never been my personal favorite style, he absolutely is the king. And Star Wars would not be what it is today without his iconic themes. You know, speaking of the finale, yesterday they brought back a lot of the themes from Star Wars that I thought helped drive home some of the connections. And there's Vader sitting on his throne to the Imperial March. Mm-hmm. There's some of the Force themes as Obi-Wan saying his goodbyes. I think that actually helped enhance, because that's how much his sound means. That's how much weight it carries. So well-deserved. John Williams is one of the pinnacles, one of the towers of Star Wars. He is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. And so we wish him a happy retirement. He is 90 years old, guys. He wrote the Kenobi theme at 90. It's wild, guys. That's absolutely wild. So wanted to give a tip of the cap there. And, you know, another thing I'll say, you know, as we're wrapping up and talking about Star Wars to come, it is 12 episodes. The first season's 12 episodes. Don't know about the second season. I, like you, was not a Rogue One I Need It kind of fan. And I love Rogue One. So it just goes to show you, Ben, there's maybe a good argument to be made that if you aren't excited for something, you're a lot more likely to be surprised when it's good.
Best way, yeah, man.
You are a lot more like, wow, I didn't think that'd be any good, and now I'm here. And so maybe that will work out for me with Andor as well. Although the trailer for Andor was really darn good, in my opinion. So
yeah,
hype is up.
Really well. Music, man.
Yes,
music was a big part of it.
Yeah. I would say here, guys, you know, as we're wrapping up here, thanks for being with us throughout this Kenobi series. I really liked the show, and what makes this even more fun for me, I love the community aspect of it. I love everyone being excited on Twitter. I love talking to you guys on streams. I love kind of that energy with it. It makes it so enhanced for me. So I want to thank everyone for joining in, being a part of our channels, watching our videos, talking with us on these live streams. It adds so much enjoyment for me personally. So I want to thank everyone for being here. And if you love the show like I did, hey, buckle up. There's way more to come this year. If you didn't like the show, if it didn't really meet your expectations like Ben, we got more coming out as well. More novels as well. More High Republic, more books, more animation. Maybe those things will click for you. I hope you can find something in the space that you have fun with. And if you don't, if Star Wars is just bringing you down, hey, it's okay to step away. Maybe come back in a year or two like I did, and you'll have maybe a renewed energy. So
yeah,
I just want to say that as we're wrapping up here, Ben. It means a lot.
Definitely. I also want to say thank you for bringing me up on board, Josh. Thanks for us started doing it. It's like you don't feel like you're in a dark room of YouTube trying to like feel things in space. Like, hey, what are the attitudes like? What are people thinking? What are real Star Wars fans outside of my area of sphere of influence, so to speak. Right. And it's so interesting to bounce ideas with you. And that's why I also love throwing you back on my podcast and we start kind of interacting. Actually, Barb's basement we had our chat with my podcast as well. He's also very different. He's your age, but very different from me and also very different from you. And it's once again, it's part of what makes Star Wars interesting for me. It's not the celebrations, honestly. It's not like, woohoo, we're excited in this, holiday or this merchandise came out of that merchandise. It's hearing how people respond to it all that makes it all the difference in the world for me. So
It's a lot
thank you guys. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everybody in the room.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, thank you guys for stopping by. Way more to come. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm sure all of you have already because I recognize most of the folks here in chat today. Thank you guys for being on this ride with us. We look forward to the next couple of months. New Star Wars book, Shadow of the Sith, coming out next week, Ben. Maybe something we can have some opinions on there as well. But appreciate it, everyone. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you all again